All right, now we'll come back to the set right here. We bring in Steve Forbes, Forbes Media Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, and John Carney, financial journalist. Gentlemen, welcome. John Carney, what'd you think of the testimony?
I thought it was really good. You mentioned this. Kevin Warsh's desire to revisit how we calculate inflation, what measures the Fed uses. The Fed has been using the PCE price index and core inflation, but they've never really explained, is that the right index to use? Especially if you're trying to figure out where is inflation going. That's a rearview mirror look. As you know, I like to look at the trimmed mean numbers. I'd like to look at the median numbers. Never hear the Fed officials talk about those numbers. It's not in their projections. They should really be looking at other things. I like his idea of opening it wide open and say, what actually is the best predictor of where inflation is going?
I like having a family fight in general, but it is interesting when you use some of these measures, you know, for the uninitiated, you're chopping off highs and lows, so you try to run a path through what's the most likely outcome. Some of the measures are much lower, actually. The Dow's trimmed mean is only 2.3%, for example. That's the personal consumption expenditures. The Cleveland Fed, the median is 2.7, but none of it's runaway type inflation.
That's right.
I like to see them have a family quarrel. You know, they're so hidebound there. They keep doing the same old thing with lousy results. The forecast doesn't forecast. The policy doesn't work. They've screwed it. They went political. I mean, Jay Powell says he wants to be independent, but he went totally political on interest rates, on climate change, on DEI. I mean, it is time for a change at the Fed.
Yeah, and a good example of it was in 2022 when he wanted to curry favor with the White House, President Biden's team, and he knew printing $120 billion a month was going to really set off inflation. So what they did was put these reverse repos out there where, in effect, they created the money and then borrowed it back and distorted the markets that way. So the idea that that was independent, no. He was just currying favor with the people who could reappoint him, which he got. But he disgraced his performance since then. But in terms of the testimony today, words like reform, words like money mean a lot with this man. It's not just words. I think he's going to throw out finally the Phillips curve, the idea that prosperity causes inflation, which is nonsense. I think he's going to pay attention to the value of the dollar, which is critical in terms of going forward. And he also, I think, when he talks about new models, he's going to put in things like, what's the impact of regulations? What's the impact of taxes in terms of economic prospects? And get them out of a rut that has really misled the country and their policies for too long.
The greatest reform he could do, actually, Larry, is make the meetings actually live. After talking to Fed officials over the last couple of years, everybody thinks that the Fed officials go in and they debate how is the economy doing, what should be the appropriate monetary policy. That's wrong. What they actually do is arrive with a preset view. They all read from their script that they have written beforehand, and then they vote the way they've already decided. It would be much better. The Bank of England actually has live meetings where people disagree, dissent. They publish dissents. It would be much better if people could come into that meeting, if Waller or Myron came in, and he could pitch people, and they have a chance of changing minds at the meeting instead of everybody coming in with their decision, and maybe they'll change their mind at the next meeting. Make the meetings live again.
So let the public see.
Yeah.
I mean, open up the black box. Open up everything. Open up their thinking. Open up their... Because what you have...
And they're going to find it's like the Wizard of Oz.
Well, you pull the curtain back. Well, but just what you have now, Jay Powell just goes on this monotone press conference and says all this stuff. And I don't think anybody really understands him anyway, but people have lost confidence in that. So you want to see these other characters.
You know, just as COVID opened up what was happening to our public schools, having the open meetings, as you suggest, would let the public see these guys really, most of the time, really don't know what they're talking about. They're shooting in the dark.
Do you leave anything out in your judgment?
No, I think he covered it, and I'm surprised they really didn't press him on what the reforms are. Not that they'd understand it anyway, but get him in there, get Tom Tillis off of it somehow by having, as you say, investigation by the Senate.
Right.
If there were,
I love that.
And beyond, move on.
No, that's right. Dave McCormick said that, I think, last week. I think it's a really good idea. Look, they're Greg Jarrett, the lawyer, is going to talk about that in a little while, but the Fed's been stonewalling the Justice Department, and you really can't do that in our system of government. The Fed is not above the law. I mean, on 4 occasions, they've been asked for materials. They haven't charged anything yet, but the sooner we get rid of this, I mean,
And they're not a fourth branch of government in the Constitution. They're a creature of Congress.
Which I think is what, basically, is what Kevin Warsh was saying. He used this phrase, the Fed has to earn its independence by its performance, presumably, and by its general behavior institutionally. That's very important. You know, you've had all these cases down through the years, no compliance, people are selling and buying stock that shouldn't have been, nothing was done until way later. You've still got court cases that are open now, but they have to earn their independence. They don't automatically get it.
And he said that the Fed shouldn't be afraid of criticism from politicians. People, ever since Donald Trump started criticizing Jerome Powell's tenure at the Fed, people have been crying, oh no, interference with Fed independence. I loved when Kevin Warsh said, no, it doesn't interfere with our independence as long as we defend our independence. We do not, our independence is up to the Fed. It's not whether a politician criticizes it. That's their right. They're elected officials. They should be able to criticize the Fed. It shouldn't be looked at as beyond, anybody's willingness to say they shouldn't do that. By the way, the senators all criticize the Fed all the time. They just act shocked when Trump did it. Ronald Reagan was very critical of the Fed when he was president. This idea that, no president has ever criticized the Fed before is just a fiction. It's not real. Barack Obama was afraid of the Fed. That's why he didn't criticize it, because they were propping up.
And Lyndon Johnson threw the head of the Fed in the 1960s, took him by the lapels and threw him against the wall. William McChesney Martin escaped.
And Carter fired Arthur Burns. It has been going on for a long time that presidents have been critical.
Yes. I absolutely believe, I think one of the key points of this when Elizabeth Warren accused him of being a sock puppet, Trump does never, whether judges or Fed or other appoint, he never asks you specific items that will be sensitive. He wants to know whether you're smart enough and you have the character enough and the staying power enough. I thought that was a wonderful moment that Kevin Warsh had. We put it in the riff, and he said, no, he never asked me specifically. That is Trump. Trump has his own opinions about interest rates, but it never puts you, he'd never put you on the line. All right, well, we'll leave it there. You sound like you're both pretty satisfied with the story. Very good. Steve Forbes, thank you. John Carney, thank you.